So I think a couple things we can improve on this week is one, Eric stops picking his nose in the middle of the podcast, and two, same.
Two. Same.
Honestly, I don't know why. My heart's beating a little bit today.
Oh gosh, that's not good.
A little bit, I don't know, a little bit anxious for this podcast.
Why?
I don't know. I don't really know where I want to take it. I haven't really decided on what I want to say today.
Oh, what happened to I got
But you,
stories?
I don't know, man. I'm just like, do we take a serious route today or do we? I'm like, I don't really have a whole bunch of crazy good stories for the week.
Uh, I mean,
Maybe you do.
not really. For me, I mean, my life is super busy right now. It's finals week for me. Well,
Mm,
it's not finals week for me. It's busy month for me. So essentially, all since I've been back from break, all of March has been prep for my performances in April. Because I think I've got like 6 or 7 performances in April. Essentially, like probably like two a week of each week of April, and then
hmm
after April's done, then we're in finals week, and then I'm done. And then juries, of course, but juries, I'm not worried about juries. It's just performing music. It's not.
Shit.
Um,
March, April. Damn.
so it's gonna fly by, and it's gonna go by a lot quicker than I am
Yeah.
expecting
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
go by.
And we're recording this on the 26th of March.
We are.
So.
Yesterday, the 25th, it was my my
Oh.
birthday, my 25th birthday.
Yeah, it's your
I
golden birthday.
I didn't even make that connection.
I just did right now.
I know, me too. Wow,
uh,
what a
old
lame
man.
golden birthday I had.
Old man Eric over here.
Uh,
I feel like when I woke up on my 25th, I felt 25 years old.
That's it's a very funny concept that I'll say getting older because I I can relate to that statement of feeling 25 years old.
So the only reason I say that is because maybe did your parents when you were growing up and it was your birthday, you got out of bed in the morning, you go downstairs, whatever. And did your parents ask you, well, do you feel 12 or do you feel a year older?
Yeah,
I think that's why they asked the question, is because every time their birthday rolls around, they felt that year older.
right.
So I think maybe that's where that stems from.
Right. Well, it's funny because I've been getting a bunch of, people have been texting me and stuff like that, wishing me happy birthday.
hmm
And of course, my family members, they're saying, oh, well, if you live till 100 years old, you're a quarter of the way through your life. And
Yeah.
then my roommate said, dude, if we die at 50, we're halfway through our
Yeah. I'm not right. I don't like to think like that, but I mean, the more people that go around me, the more I realize the possibility of getting to 100 is very difficult.
Right.
Very difficult.
So I'll say this, it fucking sucks because then I'm like on social media and I'm like I was scrolling yesterday on social media and for the first time ever, because usually it's a chance for me to turn off my mind, just mindless scrolling, right?
Yeah.
But yesterday, or I guess it was this morning, I was scrolling on it and I was just getting dumb things one after another. And I sat there and I turned my phone off and I go, what the fuck am I doing? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm 25. Why am I scrolling on fucking TikTok still? I'm like, this
Yeah.
is dumb.
There you go.
Excuse me. I'm just like, this is dumb as fuck.
Yeah. So I- actually, yeah, that was something that was something I was thinking about before we started the podcast up is I think the reason, well, this week wasn't anything spectacular for me. Like it was just I'd just call it a normal week.
Yeah, typical.
Um and I think what has been different about this normal week
Yeah.
is I've been back on Instagram and Facebook. Um I I brought back my social media as kind of a test for me to see what how would I react. Um,
Yeah.
and honestly, the honestly, I feel like shit, man. I don't feel good about any of it.
Yeah.
I I my phone gave me that notification that notification you've used your phone an extra 3 hours in the past week, and I was like, what did I gain from that 3 hours of social media scrolling? And I can't see anything physical, and the only mental thing I see is negative.
Yeah.
So I'm turning it back off. I've decided because it's dragging me down, man. Even yesterday morning, I first 2 hours, I woke up at 7, got out of bed at 9. First 2 hours, social media scrolling, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, dude. I'm like, and on top of that, I'm on this mission to develop like to develop my strength as far as physical strength.
Hmm.
And so, like, I missed out on this window, this 2 hour window where I could have been, you know, eating my calories for the day, eating my breakfast. Because for 5 days out of the week, that's where I'm regimented at work. And I get to work at 6. And within that first 2 hours, I'm eating my first meal. It's like, it's crucial for my overall performance at the gym that I spend that time in the morning wisely. And yesterday I totally failed on that. And then also to add to that, I've noticed that my good habits, my bed making, my reading, my journaling have all declined drastically from just logging back into my account on Instagram.
Hmm.
And then here we go. And then also, um, people are noticing that I'm back on social media, so they're starting to send me shit to watch.
Yeah.
And it actually, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I actually don't like receiving messages from people. I don't like receiving, hey, watch this fucking 30-second video or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't, I don't like that they're sending it to me. I just don't like the content.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just like, I mean, like what you said, like you use it for your mindless scrolling to kind of deactivate and decompress.
Right. This
I'm
is
not a big fan of that.
yeah.
I really don't like that. I'd rather actually be engaged in something, spending my time wisely.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the reason why after this podcast, I'm going to log out of Instagram and I need to log out of Facebook because that is a bad place for me too. Marketplace, dude. Spending money. I
Well,
haven't spent any money, but I was about to. I was about to. Go ahead.
so I'm sorry, but my brain's it when you started to say this stuff, started thinking about a whole different a bunch of avenues. And my first like kind of thing that popped up to me is you said yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday was Saturday.
Yeah.
So you spent 2 hours in the morning scrolling on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you do that during the week?
No.
Because I understand where like you're coming from if you just don't want to, and that's I guess that's a healthy thing. And I'm not playing the the oh well blah 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 blah. You need to do what's best for you. I'm gonna do a little devil's advocate here, you know,
Yeah.
um, because it is a weekend. May it is it not super healthy that you were scrolling for 2 hours straight? Probably not. But I don't think there was wrong with anything on a weekend scrolling for 2 hours, as long as you didn't go back later in that same day and scroll for another 2 hours. You know,
Right.
if you did your 2 hours in the morning and then you went and did the shit you had to do throughout and you were productive throughout the day, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. But then also, you know, just from me hearing you're saying all your other things that you've are trying to acquire habits for, like journaling, reading, getting into good eating habits. Um, again, devil's advocate here. It just sounds like maybe the time management isn't as good, so you can manage those things in your time and also have the phone time. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I mean, you do have to have a balance, because there is some aspect that you find some sort of enjoyment from looking at what you're seeing on social media, whether that be a car or welds or whatever it is. Unless it's absolutely just completely worthless, like
Dude,
dumb,
it's fucking.
dumb.
But that's what it is for me, man. It's like I get reeled into these fucking stupid videos, man. It's just it, I don't even know. What do
But
you
do you
call them?
find
Like
them funny?
chuckle videos?
Yeah, do you find them
Yeah,
funny
they're
though?
just yeah, you laugh or you do a little silent nose laugh for 2, 3 seconds. Next one.
Well, yeah,
Like,
I mean that's entertainment. Because I understand where I understand where you're going for, of having this healthy, or what you perceive to be a healthy lifestyle. But if you
mhm.
do that and you don't get some sort of entertainment, then that becomes unhealthy. Because guess what? As much as you might think social media might be bad of scrolling, and I'm not saying that it's not bad, because I definitely think that there are aspects to it that are bad. But if you get like a chuckle, that's a form of entertainment. As long as you're not going overboard with it. You know what I mean?
I think so. I don't know. Maybe you do this as well, but I notice that when I start to lose interest in the app that I'm on, I'll close the app and go to the next one. So I don't have TikTok downloaded. Otherwise, I would just have no fucking progress throughout any portion of my life.
Right, right, right.
So, but I like before I would do TikTok. All right, I'm losing interest. I'm going to go to Instagram. All right, I'm losing interest. I'm going to go to Facebook, go to Marketplace, see what I can buy. And then it'd start all over again. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And that cycle would just continue on until I was like, all right, I've been doing this for 4 hours. Time to actually go start my life.
Yeah.
Because, like, I would, yesterday, I bounced between Instagram and Facebook Marketplace for that 2 hours. I'm
Hmm.
like, I knew I was losing interest because I kept popping back and forth between the apps.
Yeah.
And then I finally looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 9. It's 9 and I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah, it's
think
just
it's,
go ahead.
I think it's to each their own. I
Yeah.
think you have a good purpose behind why you're using the social media because you have a very stressful, packed life right now. So I think that's appropriate. But I think as far as what I'm trying to accomplish right now, I just don't think I can have those. I don't think I can waste those 2 hours of mindless scrolling because I'm just like so dead set on this gym thing right now
Yeah.
and this like nutrition thing and self betterment. And I think that phone is seriously just fucking my anchor.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Because I mean, to me, for me, I don't understand that aspect that you're saying it's an anchor for you. I understand that the phone's bad, but like for me, like you were saying, I don't necessarily think I'm living a super stressful life. You know what I mean? Um, but I have. It's crucial that I do things that are not work related.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I might be a little different than a lot of people because I don't. When I wake up, I look at my phone, I look at my notifications, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get to those after I have my cup of coffee, after I take my shower, then I'll get to all those things. So I'll wake up and I'll watch my TV show while I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And for me, it's at night. Nighttime is when I just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And I think it's something about the brain because I understand because I think the same thing. Um, of like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? You're like, this is just work. I could be doing something better, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I have that all the time. I'm like, what am I doing? I could be working on something right now, doing something better.
Yeah.
But it's hard because I think individuals that are our age, mid 20s to late 20s, I would even say urge to say early 20s, we're so determined and we're so dead set on doing all these things that we don't realize that we need to just chill for a moment. Like we want to do this and we want to do this. We have this. We need to do this. We need to be successful. We need this. I can't ever stop. I can't take a break for myself. That's bad. That's really bad. That's bad for your brain. And I've found as much as for me, the phone might be terrible, but that's kind of my break. That's my disconnect. They, they say, what a disassociation. They say that is a bad thing, but I'm like, I don't care. It gets me away from thinking about all the things that I need to do. People say, "Oh, well, that's not healthy." I'm sorry, I disagree with that because for some, well, it depends on the individual. Like you were saying, I think it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the individual. For me, I can do that because I can turn my phone off and be like, okay, I'm gonna go work on music or I'm gonna go do something else. It's not. I don't ever do it and I'm not conscious of my time. I'm doing it 100% knowing that I'm spending a couple of hours, an hour, 30 minutes on social media. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
also, uh, most of the stuff that I'm consuming is stuff that makes me laugh. It's funny stuff. I'm not over here consuming negative things that, like, oh, that guy's got a house that I want, or that guy's got this car that I want, or whatever. I'm not sitting there. It's mostly like comics, like that film their sets or
Mm-hmm.
something about cars or golf. That's what it is. You know, that's the
Yeah.
most of the stuff that I consume. So for me, I don't know. Phones are weird, and it varies per individual. I think. Looks like you
I
have a
agree.
question.
No, I'm trying to pick apart your words. I'm trying to like put some sense to it in a way that I can understand. I'm trying to think of okay, I'm like let's take because obviously we're butting heads on this topic
Yeah,
just a little bit.
yeah.
Um so I'm trying to think okay, I'm going to break it down in a way like think about all the people that I know. All right, now think about the ways that those people spend what do you call it? Your free time? Your like you were saying, I think your pleasure time or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I now so okay, so Liam and the fam, um, they have this. They have they watch movies together.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like a very religious act at this point. It seems like every time I hit Liam up, he's always like, "Oh, he's like, I'm in the middle of a movie."
Yeah.
So the whole family sits there and they watch, the movie for an hour, half, 2 hours, however long it is. So trying to, you know, I feel like maybe it just depends on what your goals are, man. I guess it
Right.
depends on how determined are you to reach those goals, and then from there you make that assessment on, can I double down on social media and a movie in one day?
Mm.
Can I spend 2 hours watching a movie, and then can I spend 2 hours scrolling through shit on my phone, and that's 4 hours of your day. So let's say you're up for 16 hours, which is, how long you probably should be awake is 16 hours, maybe more
Yeah.
if you're a very goal oriented person. So now
I
you're left with 12. What are you doing with the rest of that 12? If you have an 8 hour day in your job, right?
yeah.
So what about that other time?
Right.
You know?
Well, it's funny because I was gonna ask you, and you had said it, doubling down on a movie and also the social media time. But my thought was before you said that, I'm like, well, what's the difference between watching a movie and scrolling on TikTok? They're
Right.
both
That's
entertainment. What does the movie give you that TikTok doesn't, or vice versa?
right.
So it depends on. For me that's all time management. You know, because I'm sorry, but you can't watch two movies in a day. You just
Right.
can't. Unless you're on a weekend, you got your shit done during the week, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna watch two movies a day, and that's it. But it also depends on what your goals are. If it's a like for you, it's a gym thing. I mean, it depends on what your time management looks like for the gym. If that includes your weekends because you have a full work week that you can't maybe um, hit your gym goals during the work week, so you have to make up for it over the weekends, then that's a little bit of a different story. Then it would make sense as to why you go, okay, I can't watch two movies or I can't scroll on social media. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it also depends on where you get your source of entertainment from.
Yeah.
So, like you were saying, reading books, if you find reading books entertaining, then that's your source of entertainment. And there is no scrolling on TikTok or watching a movie. I don't
Yeah.
like reading. Well, that's not true. I don't like reading books that don't do anything for me. I'll read what do they call is fiction? No, nonfiction. Nonfiction is the factual books, right? Right. So I'll read nonfiction books, stuff that say like the music business aspect to music, right? The
Mhm.
business side of it, or
Mhm.
a book on conducting techniques, stuff like that. I'll read those or articles, but I won't read like Harry Potter
Yeah.
or I just thought this doesn't interest me. I'll watch a movie
Interesting.
for that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it all depends on what you find entertaining. If you find writing entertaining,
Yeah.
then
Cuz like
write.
I'm looking, so only comparison, right? Because I think guys tend to make analogies or draw comparisons when trying to explain things. The only thing I can think of is the qual. So okay, so yeah, as I said, I've been on this nutrition stint here, right? And so this past week, I've really dedicated this week to old ways or old acts of Taylor, right? So when I say that, I mean social media has been in full effect, what I used to do regularly. Eating habits. I went back to a very non regimented eating style. So that means getting the food truck in the morning at work, and for dinner, being lazy about prepping food. So then I'll swing by Chipotle or swing by. I've been eating Canes lately. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Raising Canes.
yeah,
Yep.
and Chick-fil-A. Dude, I eat Canes and Chick-fil-A back to back. Um, so I had 4 meals from either Canes or Chick-fil-A in
R-
2 days.
recently?
Yeah, this week. And so then I look. my weight hasn't fluctuated at all,
Sure.
but the quality of workout and the quality that I feel inside has suffered greatly.
Hmm.
Like I PR'd on my bench the other day at the gym, but the workout was so shitty because I put some shitty ass food inside of me, right? I was still able to push the weight, but like after the workout, I was like, that was the worst workout I've had in so long, and I PR'd. So I've been experimenting a lot because I'm like, dude, we have all this. Oh, we are supposed to have all this time here on Earth. I'm just like, why not find what works best for me? So, as far as the social media versus a book, I'm gonna start picking up the book a lot more than the social media.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the food goes, I'm probably not gonna eat Cane's unless I get stuck in a pinch and I have to eat Cane's
Right.
because I just feel better doing the other thing.
Right. I mean, uh, it's all a variable. It all depends on the individual and what makes you feel good. If media
Yeah.
doesn't make you feel good, fucking don't
Yeah.
be on social media. I
No.
don't think social media makes anybody fucking feel good. I just honestly.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but have you? I have a question, and it came up, and I'm touching my nose again.
Good.
Have you ever considered ice baths
Um.
or like the coldest shower?
So I guess I need to have a more open mind behind it. I've tried the cold showering thing, but it's like I don't have an open enough mind to reap the benefits from it yet.
Well, okay. Let me ask: have you done extensive research on it?
No.
Okay.
I would rather so the only here's the logic behind it, okay? So on social media, obviously, it's like this big fucking trend
Sure.
right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me take this opportunity while there's all this hype and all this like freshness behind this topic, and let me do my own personal research, see what I feel from it, and then do the research. And if my shit aligns with that, then that's what, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because that you make a very, very good point, and I agree with you 100%. People are just so dead set on just following what the trends are.
Yeah.
Nobody ever questions it. Nobody ever, nobody nowadays, they don't have inquiring minds. They just, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
I saw this person doing it and he's an athlete, so I'm going to do it because why
Yeah.
not? Whereas
Yeah.
you have to think, like you said, what did this athlete do to research getting in the ice baths or taking a cold shower?
Yeah.
And that's where, like you said, you see something, don't just follow it unless you're okay with just following the crowd, but take that, say, okay, that looks interesting. I'm going to inquire about it because I don't know anything about it, right? And this is the good I mean, you can find a positive in social media, and this was it. Seeing something do something, or seeing somebody do something and inquiring about that and doing research about it. Because there are actually a lot of health benefits besides like everybody's typical thing of like, oh, the ice water helps inflammation on muscles and stuff like that. There's a lot more science behind it than just helping swollen muscles.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, well, let me say this: if you are going to research, make sure it's credible research. I don't think enough people know about credible research because and I think I talked about this on a previous podcast. You can go on Google and search just about anything you want, and there will be something on there that says something that alters to your side of the argument.
Yeah. Aligns with your own opinions.
You can search, is it okay to use I can't give a good example, something grammatically in a sentence, and then it'll say, oh, well, actually, blah, blah, blah was put into the English dictionary a long time ago or whatever, or a couple of years ago. No, 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 no. You have to not, you can't just research what you want to hear because
Yeah.
the internet's going to tell you what you want to hear. And therefore,
Yeah.
your facts and your arguments are invalid because you're just being validated on information that you think is factual, but it's not.
Yeah.
It has to be based on credible research. So you have to learn how to do that. You can't just go to like some random article and say, "Oh, well, this article said it."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
no, no, you're good. But I think, um, geez, man, I find so much alignment with the gym and personal health with all of these topics, and so I mostly make the correlations with all this shit that I've been doing right now has been a total experiment towards me. Um, I've just been trying to find out like what is the right recipe for me to be successful on a day-to-day basis? What do I need to do to make myself feel 100% every single day, you know? Cuz I'm like, dude, we have so much time. Well, we're supposed to have so much time. We're supposed to have so many years. And I'm like, so many people just throw those years away, throw those days away. I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out what is the right thing for me. And so, as far as the experimentation of the ice baths, personal research, right? Like I said, like figure out what does it do for you, and then figure out what does it do for others. Because a lot of the times, what you'll find people say, like, I'm going to give Liam's going to be my bad example. Um, he's very keen on this whole ice bath thing. And honestly, I think ice baths are worth it. You know, ultimately, I haven't done enough research for myself to see if they're worth it for me, but I think a majority of people, I think there's very good benefits to the ice bath. But when people start talking about the ice baths, you'll notice that everybody says the same like five key points because that's what they're being fed through the social media. Like you saying the inflammation. I bet you 9 times out of 10, if you ask somebody about ice baths, they will include something about inflammation
Hmm.
in their description of what does it do for you. Does
Mm-hmm.
that actually do it for you? Does it decrease your inflammation? Does it truly for you?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that what you're just saying because everybody else is saying it?
Right.
So do your own research when it comes to that topic. If it seems like it's a trend, before you dig too deep into that trend, do it on your own terms, right? So, do I want to say this? I don't know. Steroids.
Hmm.
I'll talk about it.
Okay.
Um, I've been taking steroids for quite some time now.
Yeah.
I'm currently on they call it a cycle. I'm currently on my second cycle. So I think steroids are a very, very, very touchy subject. Um, but I wanted to know, what are these going to do for me? Like, what do they really do for me? Because a lot of the times you hear steroids and you think like a massive, monstrous muscle person or a rage monster or like, like that. I'm like, okay, so in the words of Seth Feroci, you're the student, you're let me think. You're the student, the teacher, and the guinea pig. It's your own science experiment. So I was like, okay, but you can apply that to regular life. You know, you're the student, the teacher, and the guinea pig. So that's what I've been trying to do. And for me, as far as the steroid use goes, as far as aesthetically, when you look at me, do I look like I take steroids? Not really. In a day to day, normal situation, I just look like any average Joe. For me, what they do is one, they make me lose hair. My hair just fucking falls out when I take them. Two, my back knee. I have horrible back or acne on my back. And 3, my strength. My strength does improve greatly. For the past 3 weeks, I've PR'd on all my lifts by at least 20 pounds. So that's kind of why I've been trying to have this more open mind to a lot of things in my life, is because I'm doing something that could risk shortening my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because truthfully, steroids do, factually proven, have shortened people's lives. A lot of people who take steroids, cardiovascular disease is a big heavy hitter. Testicular cancer in men, that's a big heavy hitter. So, what is the risk to reward ratio? I think there's more risk than reward at the end of the day. I think doing it naturally is probably where I need to go as far as after this next cycle ends. I think a natural way of doing this would be the best for me, because ultimately, what are the goals that I have here? I'm not trying to be on stage being a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to enter into any crazy strongman competitions. Like, I have other endeavors that are more aligned with me and my personality that I would much rather pursue than risking shortening my life for, you know?
Yeah. It's funny, a lot of what you said, and something that I kept thinking as you were talking was, it's how you view life. And this, I just came up with this. It depends on what lens you're going to view life through. Okay.
Right.
An example. I view life through the lens of music. I think you view life through the lens of the gym. But I don't think there's a lot of people that have this lens. They don't know. They can't relate anything. Because a lot of what we've talked about, perspective, and all the things we've talked about on this podcast, we can say these things and we can have perspective because we see it through our own individual lenses.
Okay. That's a great way to say that.
So
I like that.
I apply everything I know, everything I learn, everything I say, every suggestion I make, everything I do is through the lens of music, because I know music so well that I can apply it to real life things.
Okay.
And I think you're similar in the gym. You know the gym so well that you apply a lot of your things, and that's why we can have the kind of conversations that we have and the kinds of advice we can give younger people or even older people. It's because we have such a strong lens that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people aren't fortunate like you and I to have those lenses. So when you're talking about steroids, you're viewing that through the lens of the gym, and you're now starting to realize that maybe it's not so great. Like you said, the risk versus reward. Steroids aren't as good for you, and you want to do it more of the natural way of hitting the gym, you know? Because, I mean, in my opinion, and I don't know if this is yours, but you're finding it out through your lens, everything needs to be done naturally. That's my opinion. And the way that I, and obviously my parents had some doing of this growing up, and, everything I've experienced, but a lot of it is through the lens of music. Because guess what? If I get up and I can conduct an orchestra or an opera, or hell, if I'm even singing, I don't want it to be unnatural. I want it to be natural. Mm-hmm. Even when we can talk about voice technique, we don't want an unnatural voice technique. We want the most natural ease of air, ease of flow, ease of tension you can get so you can sing to be 100 years old. If you have an artificial or a unnatural sounding voice or a produced voice, then you will not have something that will last you till you're 100 years old.
Yeah.
I truly believe in that. It's
Right.
just like you said with steroids. If you take steroids, you might not, you might shorten
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah. The longevity, it's not there.
Right. And I just kind of realize that now is I think you and I are pretty fortunate that we have a lens. A lot of people don't have those lenses.
So I'm glad that you restated that because I totally forgot. Um, but I don't. I can agree in some sort of way about, some people don't have a lens, but maybe it's some people don't know what lens to look through.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you really have to have a very open mind. You have to be able to detach from your day to day, and you have to be able to evaluate yourself.
Mm.
And those things that I just stated are such it takes development, self-development. And if you don't have the means to self-develop, or if you don't have the drive or the will, or anything, if you don't have the right environment, you're not going to be able to know or decipher what lens to look through, man. You and I are really fortunate that we have the friendship that we have, and we have this podcast, and even before that, just our friendship alone.
Yeah.
We're so lucky that we were able to both have this unknowingly open mind with each other.
Mm.
And I think these conversations have developed us greatly as far as, us maturing and having an open outlook on life at such a young age, or we know what lens to look through.
Right.
We know how to, dude, we're saying these things openly to a public audience.
Yeah.
Because we're confident in what we're saying. And we truly feel that what we're saying has some meaning and value, and we're getting feedback from people that it has meaning and value to them.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of what we're doing here, is because we think we know what we're saying well enough to share it with people.
Yeah.
Because we're just trying to help people along the way. We're trying to help people realize that you can have an open mind, and the way to do that is to detach from your day-to-day life, and everything that we've been saying so far on today's episode. It's a weird concept, man. It's a weird concept.
Yeah, it's it's also hard to be okay with.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to let your mind go.
Yeah.
Because people are afraid to let their minds wander. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a perfectly valid thing to think. But at the end of the day, it's like, honestly, I think that's why we're able to have these conversations. It's because we do allow our minds to wander, and we do, like everything you've just listed. We have the lenses, and we have all these things. And it was funny because I was talking to my mom about our podcast, and I was telling her kind of like, what the premise of our podcast was. And I said, it's much better than the first time around because we were trying way too hard. And we were trying to make something that wasn't what it was, or something that we weren't.
Yeah.
And I said, I mean, our podcast is Late Night Tangents because certainly we can go on tangents in this podcast. But really, I think this podcast is really about perspective. Because if you want to categorize everything we've just said, the lens, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing that human beings could perfect, is perspective. And if I truly think this, if every human being on this planet, if they could master one thing and that was perspective, I don't think we would have the kind of issues that we have today in our
Honestly,
society.
dude, it's it's uh it's crazy. I don't really find a lot of other podcasts have the same goal or approach that you and I have. People are so uncomfortable talking about what you and I talk about, I feel, that
Yeah.
they just avoid it and they go for whatever's mainstream. They just try to align whatever's with mainstream.
Well, you know why I think it is? Because I just don't think people are, number one, I don't think people know. And
Maybe.
then number two, I just don't, like you said, I don't think people are comfortable with it
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lack of knowledge in it and there's a lack of vulnerability, or
Vulnerability.
there's vulnerability.
There is.
So those two things are really bad when you're talking about certain topics, is vulnerability and lack of knowledge. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that we're knowledgeable, we're just speaking to our truths and to our facts that might be beneficial to somebody else. But we're being vulnerable and talking about these things in hopes that if someone's listening, it can gain that person perspective in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Life.
Yeah. So, um, I don't know. Do you remember back in the day when, obviously Cabela days?
Oh,
Um, so that job was truly it for me. That job, I think, changed. This is crazy to say. That job really changed my life
hmm.
a lot. Not because of the fucking job,
Right.
obviously, but because it was a perfect display of where I did not want to end up.
hmm.
Okay, and I think remember how I used to say get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
That job was where I learned that from. Um, there was there was this girl I used to work with in the warehouse. That was my department.
Yeah.
Um, and she said that to me one night when we were, sorting freight. I don't know.
Yeah.
How old was I? 19?
Yeah.
I think I was like 19. And I was talking to this girl who was like in her 30s, maybe just before her 30s. Anyways, um, and she said that to me, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm.
And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, I need to do that. Um, but it's the takeaways. You and I are very good about what was the takeaway,
Hmm.
right? So like I think when most people would bash and be like, "Yeah, I work with this fucking piece of shit 30-year-old who has no life ahead of them and they're just blah blah blah," just talk mad shit about these people, right? They don't take away anything from that. They don't think about what they just said. Like think about what you just said, right? You're making fun of this person because they're 30 working in a warehouse at Cabela's, whereas I'm looking at this person and they're 30 working in a warehouse at Cabela's, and I'm like, that's not what I'm gonna be when I'm 30 years old,
Yes. Yes.
right? So it's take those tiny little situations and apply them to yourself. Where do I want to be when I'm 30 years old?
Right.
So that job gave me a lot of perspective in that category of I need to get my shit together. I may be 19, but I need to start fucking planning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, being in your 20s, I mean, dude, this is where we figure it out.
yeah. We're
I
running out of time, too.
I have talked, and this is, and a lot of the reason um I've I don't ever really have ever talked to people my age. I've always found comfort in talking to people that are much older than I am.
Yeah.
I have better conversations. it's always been that way, and people are like, oh, it's you're an old soul, Eric, and I'm like, I don't know if that's what it is. I think older people are uh wiser, and they have more to say and more knowledge to give me
Mm-hmm.
than someone my age that's only concerned about sleeping with the quarterback or sleeping with the head cheerleader or whatever the case may have been.
Yeah.
When I was 18, 19, hell, and this has been the way since I was, a freshman in high school. I was always talking to the teachers and talking to like coaches versus my friends and stuff. Not saying that I didn't talk to my friends, but it gave me a lot of knowledge. And I've heard from people who are much, much older, like my grandparents' age, right? They say, I don't know why you're such in a damn hurry to do all this stuff. In your 20s, that's when you figure it out. Guess what? You and I are figuring it out. We're trying to figure out what we're doing, where we want to go. I will next year I will have 2 degrees. I will have a bachelor's and a master's degree in music. Is that ultimately what I want to do? Yes, that is ultimately what I want to do. But I am not going to hinder myself saying this is the only thing I'm going to do. Because if there's something else that comes up, perfect example, the podcast. If the podcast takes off and it's worthy of me doing this full time, I will do this 100% full time.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is you just got to figure out. And a lot of people don't get that, they're so like dead set on stuff that they don't figure it out. They don't take a step back and just,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the big thing, is we all need to learn to just take a step out of our body and just look at what has happened, look what is happening, and look where your trajectory is. Because not a lot of people do that. People can't
Mm-hmm.
step out of their out of body experience. I don't want to say out of body experience, but just step out of reality for just a second to see, and you got to be real with yourself. If you've spent 6 years in studying one thing, and at the end of your 6 years, you realize, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Then that's a truth that you need to follow and say, I don't want to do that. Then you go figure that it just because you don't do that and you spent so much time doing that. Yeah, that sucks. It probably really does suck, but you got to do what is ultimately best for you. And if that
Mm-hmm.
if that 6 years for those 2 degrees was not it, then you just gotta, you gotta make that realization.
Yeah. And I think we give out a lot of pretty decent advice. I don't really, when I'm speaking, I'm not really like speaking to anybody.
No,
Like there's no, like I'm not speaking to older people, I'm not speaking to younger people. I
speaking to
want everyone,
myself.
yeah, I want everyone to have the same takeaway. And
Right.
I think um, something that I've always struggled with is when I hear really good advice, I don't know how to carry it out.
Hmm.
So like someone gives me advice and then I'm like, "Oh, that's really good advice," but I have no idea how to do that.
How to apply
It's
it?
not yeah, and I think it's like an overthinking thing for me, or it used to be. Um, and a lot of good advice um, requires you first to not overthink the advice, right? So, uh, God, how do I give this advice? Um,
I think I have an answer for you.
Go ahead. I'll think more.
So it's I read something that said if you're an overthinker, right.
Okay.
So if you get good advice, I think it's um very important to write it down.
Okay.
Journal it.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you time to inquire about it. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the times, I mean, it's just human nature. Someone says something to you and you go about and do a bunch of other stuff. You go back and you're like, wait, it's not necessarily what he said, but now you're starting to think, okay, then you start making things up based off of what that person says instead of just having the bottom line. You know what I mean? This was the advice that was said, or this is what somebody said to me, right? And just write about it. I think that's super, because I know were saying that you journal and you've been writing. I think writing is a very important thing to do, especially if you overthink. And it's always good to jot down. I mean, I'm probably going to start doing this too, because I just thought about this just as you were saying that, is writing it down and thinking about it. Because one thing I've been doing since my sophomore year of college is I've been writing an autobiography, essentially, since I was a sophomore, of every moment in my life, everything everybody's said to me, everything that I have made the connection in my real life, I've written it down. And it's probably 50 pages long. And I just write when I start to overthink things and let it flow, because I've really, over the last 7 years, I've really loved writing. But that also stems from taking philosophy classes and allowing my thoughts to be written down has always helped me. And then you can, because as you start writing, you start thinking more and more, and it's easier to put it down on paper, and then you read it back and you're like, oh, okay, I was onto something there.
Yeah. And with that, I think it's also important that whether you're typing this out or if you're writing it by hand, the first thing that you need to realize is that if you're going to write it out by hand, don't worry so much about grammar or spelling or punctuation. Just get the words down on paper. If it's a mess, it's a mess.
Yeah.
But then you're able to detach from your own brain, and you're just like, okay, what did I just write down? You read it back, and now you're gaining perspective on yourself. That right there is a form of perspective, because you're putting yourself in your past shoes and you're looking at it from a different way. Another thing is you have to figure out how to have that open mindset. I'm really learning that having an open mind will just make situations easier. So like with this advice that we're giving you, if you go, let's say tomorrow, I'm going to go into work with an extremely open mind and I'm just going to be listening. I think listening is a very, very key portion of becoming a very well-rounded person. Don't be so quick to talk. The loudest, like I say, like with leadership, which we're not going to get into leadership because that's too much. But with leadership, a good leader isn't always the loudest person in the room.
Yeah.
Sit back and just listen to people. Just be a little quieter, man. You and I think, are very quiet people.
I was going to say, I mean, this is related. I was just looking it up. Is a lot of people, I will say, not everybody, but majority of people are not okay with silence. I love silence.
Yeah.
I can sit in a silent room and just listen to the sounds around me. I love it.
Yeah.
Because in silence you find meaning and you find sounds. Even in a silent room, you start hearing things.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're getting delusional, but it's just scientific fact that there are sound waves and sound frequencies that you hear even in a silent room. Go ahead.
Notice though, right? Because I notice that I'll do the same thing. Maybe it just sounds weird. But I'll just sit here in this room in my recliner in silence. I'll hear the refrigerator running.
Yep.
I'll hear people outside. I'll hear birds chirping.
Yeah.
And notice how every time in silence, you always figure out what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
You always stand up and you're like, all right, I'm going to go do this.
Right.
You make a decision.
Right.
Like, it's really cool that there's like a point, there's like a certain amount of time where you've sat in the silence long enough to finally be like, all right, I'm gonna go do this,
Right. It's
make a decision.
well, and then you really get in tune with everything that's going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you hear the fridge, you hear the birds, you hear the wind, you hear people talking. Then you start hearing your heartbeat. Then you start hearing your breathing. Then you start uh, getting internal rhythm and all these other aspects to it. And it's just for me, I love silence. It's always funny because in school, and I kind of don't like this about school, is um it's almost like sometimes you're forced to say something, and it's like, well, I don't really have any valid input for this. I don't have anything really to say, or I'm not going to say it now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because in school, I always am sitting in the back usually because I'm a taller individual and I like to my leg room, so I always usually sit in the back and spread out.
Yep.
But I don't ever say anything like, well, who has got an answer for this? Or like when we have those big, like, kind of, I don't want to necessarily say philosophical moments in classes, I usually don't say anything and I just listen and I take in everything what everybody says. And then at the end of the conversation, then I'll usually, I'll say something if I feel that it needs to be said. Like an example I could give is in my English diction class. We were talking about our substitute professors that we had because our professor had been working at the Metropolitan Opera, so she was gone for the fall term or majority of the fall term. So she had some of her previous students who now are like teaching college level. One of the professors one of the substitutes was a collaborative pianist, and one was a professor at Columbia. And it's funny because majority of the class said I did not like I can't remember his first, well, I'm just not going to say his first name. But
Sure.
the individual who taught at Columbia, they were saying, I didn't like the guy that taught at Columbia. I loved the collaborative pianist. And I started to think about why. And they were saying he was kind of very silent. He didn't say anything. He didn't really teach us. He just kind of asked us questions all the time and like what we were thinking. And I'm like, interesting. An Ivy League professor is not just handing you the answers to life. He's making you inquire and think about it. That's a funny concept. It's not funny because those Ivy League schools, that's what they look for. Is they don't want someone that just says this is the answer. Right. And
Dude,
I loved the professor. He also taught at Juilliard, or he teaches at Juilliard and he teaches at Columbia. And I loved him the most because he made me think. He was just like, well, how does that feel? How did that feel? How did that sound? What did you do differently from this time versus that time?
Yeah.
Did you like this approach better than this approach? Versus the other professor, she was great, but she said, she was giving us the answers, and majority of the class was like, we didn't really, it was kind of like this like more philosophical thing. And it's funny. And I was sitting in the back of the classroom and I knew that he taught at Juilliard and Columbia. And I'm like, huh. And I really liked him, and everybody in the class didn't like him. They were shitting on him. And I'm like, I freaking loved him because he made me think. He made me find the answers for myself.
Yeah.
Not what
Get comfortable being uncomfortable situation.
right. And so at the end of the class, I said something. I was just like, I think what a lot of people in this class, and I said this, I'm like, I don't think a lot of people in this class realize is that he teaches at Columbia and Juilliard, and he's not just going to spoon feed us the answers. Because there is, especially in music and in world, this is like my go-to thing. The world is not black and white. And he really made us, because there is no right or wrong answer. It's what is your truth, what is good for you, what you felt was good, what you felt was easier, might be wildly different for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good because I think a lot of today's population, like you said, are spoon fed. I think it's really, really easy to get by, like we've talked about before, a public school system. Dude, it sounds like a fucking cakewalk.
Right.
These kids are just, they're
I
just spoon fed, man.
yeah,
What's that making?
you're memorizing answers.
Not even, dude. You're not. You're not really. The internet is giving you everything you fucking need.
Right.
Like you're just creating a bunch of, I don't want to say worthless people,
Robots.
but God, dude, you're just making a population that they don't know how to use their brain.
Right.
They don't know how to solve things.
Right. That and see that and that was my big thing. I'm like, I'm sorry. I hate tests. I hate tests. I have always hated tests. And I'm like, if a test was like me talking with the professor about something and showing my knowledge, I'm like, count me in. I will take that 1,000 times, you know? But
Yeah.
when you sit down and you got to take a test, I hate those. I hate those because I'm sorry, but anybody can, in my schooling, it's just like, I think in a lot of world is everybody can memorize an answer. But it's that next step that and
The
some people
application.
and some people don't are okay with just memorizing the answers. Some people are okay with that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be doing what you're telling me to do. I want to go further. I want to know why. I want to know when. I want to know all these things. I'm like, well, why the fuck does 4 + 4 = 4? You know, I know that 4 + 4 = 8, but I want to know why 4 + 4 = 8. Those are the kinds of questions I ask myself.
Mm-hmm.
Math is a very bad example that I gave because that's just facts. I mean, 4
That
+
is
4,
facts, yeah.
4 + 4 = 8. But it's
Yeah.
like going beyond that is what I've always been curious in. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
I always want more, and it's like a scratch. It's like an itch for me. I'm like, I don't want to just be told this. I'm like, I want to know more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like me going to automotive. It's like most people just get in the car and turn it on and it runs.
Right.
Well, I want to know, why does it run?
Right.
What's going on in there that makes it run?
Right.
What's the process? Why do
Right.
I put fuel in my car? How
Right.
does that work?
Right.
You know? Like that's for me is why I've found the interest in automotive is because it's like, okay, I got to figure out a bunch of shit out
Right.
that somebody's already got figured out.
Right. Right.
I could go and I could look up how the hell does this work. And I think that's the thing though, is like people don't do self-discovery. People will just go straight to the answer instead of figuring out the answer.
Mm.
People in the gym, they'll do tricep pushdowns because people are like, this will develop your well, why does it develop my triceps? And does it actually work for me?
Right.
Does it develop my triceps or does
Right.
it develop yours?
And if you go further in your acquisition, you could be like, okay, well, this will get into science. You're like, what is the science behind that? And is there another way to apply that science in a different way that will allow me to develop the triceps better? You know?
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I love singing because in music, because in my opinion, music is communicating. And I love talking with people and to a certain extent. And that's why I love music is because I want to go further on and this is like humans specifically in like the brain and like human connections and human interactions. It just interests me so much. And that's, there's that music aspect to it because there is some level of unknowing, humans are so widely different across the board. And we have all these psychological and psychiatric research and science that has already been done, but it goes beyond that, and that's what intrigues me. And that's why I'm like, I want to get to your core by singing this song. You know what I mean?
Yeah. um well, and with that, like, I'm sure that you'll start to find parallels in other areas of your life as well. So what I was also going to say,
That lens. That
yeah,
fucking lens. Sorry.
is uh, this is the oil field for me. That was a fuck. That was a wealth of perspective. That was the most perspective I've ever gained in my whole life.
Hmm.
And then I started noticing, holy shit, this this career path for some aligns and parallels with so many things in the day to day of just regular life. Like, I'm not gonna actually, you know what, fuck that. I'm not gonna give an example anymore. I'm just saying, like, I've done all these things in my life, and I've made sure that what is the takeaway? I have to take away something, otherwise it was no good.
Right.
It was no good to me.
Yeah.
Just self development, Eric.
Right.
Self development.
It's funny because you say takeaway. You're just like, what's. It's so funny that you said that because one thing my dad always, always tells me, he's just like, what's the takeaway?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what are you taking away from this? You got to find
Yeah.
the takeaway. Or like
Yeah.
if he's talking about something from work or something in his own life, he's like, the takeaway was blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, And I'm like, that's huge is what's, what the takeaway is from it, what you're gaining from that, what extra, I don't even want to say knowledge, but what extra element are you taking away from what you just experienced? It's
Yeah, dude.
huge. It's
Yeah,
huge.
dude. It's crazy. It's like all those things that like our parents used to say over and over and over and just beat into us as kids. And stop saying what's the takeaway. I don't give a shit. Well, now I give a ton of shits.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn it, you know?
Right.
And this is like the situation where they're like,
I know it.
one day you'll thank me for this.
Well, there's and we've talked about this on the phone. I think that we talked about this on the phone like a couple like during the week, this last week or something like that. Is I said there's just something nice about being a kid because you don't have all these life responsibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being a kid, you lack a lot of perspective, a lot of knowledge because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit, your parents have been through it. Your usually your parents are in their 30s when they have you, right? Or late 20s.
Yeah.
They have these things and
Yeah.
how you and I are so like on it and we're like at the forefront of this inquisitions and or acquisitions and all these different like elements to our lives of perspective and learning these things. That's so fresh and that's not going to go away. And I think maybe as you get older, like in your 50s and stuff like that, that maybe tends to start going away because you're like, okay, I want to relax now. I just want to watch TV and drink my cup of coffee, take a nap, and then go back to bed and watch the birds fly by the windows,
Yep.
But when your parents have you, I mean, they're just trying to express their knowledge to you. But sometimes a lot of parents may not realize is that you need to do it in a way that is manipulated so a kid will understand it. Yeah. Analogies are freaking huge. But because if you just go into it like you and I are talking right now to a 14-year-old, 15, 16, 17, whatever year old, they're going to be like, you're dumb. Stop. Of course. They're going to, because they don't understand the words that you're saying.
Yeah.
You got to put it in a way that it's not that they're going to understand, but just a creative way, being creative on how to give your kids some sort of knowledge and wealth. And I think for me on my end of it, I think my parents did a fairly good job at being able to kind of nurture it for someone my age. But I also think about back at my life, I was the same age. I'm like, I'm going to do what I want to do,
So here's what I just realized. All right.
Yeah.
So it's one thing right? Like we were just saying, it's one thing to just give the answer, but it's another thing to live through the answer.
Yeah.
So, like when you and I are talking about this, I think, because I'm trying to think, I'm like, okay, so I am at the age where I need to start thinking, how am I going to parent my child?
Right.
Because a lot of the times the parents will give you the answer, this is what you need to do.
Right.
And there's some pushback. There's I want to experience it on my own. There's some
Right.
stubbornness.
Right.
But now it's you have to figure out how to give them the answer, but also have them live through that answer. How
Right.
are you going to apply this? Because it's just like we just said, man. Like getting through high school has never been easier. All
Right.
your answers that you need are on the internet.
Yeah.
Those are all your answers. Now, how are you going to apply those answers?
Right.
Is what you need to focus on, right? Because you may have the answer key, right? But it's just like there's no self development in an answer key.
Right. And
So
and it's funny because what you just said, it's like your parents don't want to spoon feed you and give you the answer, and they'll tell you what to do, because there's certainly an aspect to that. Because my first thing I think of is like my parents are saying, you have to do your homework, you have to clean your room, you have to do the dishes, you
Yeah.
have to mow the lawn, you have to do chores, right? Oh my God, I hated
like-
chores. I hated
but
it.
like,
And I
like,
rebelled.
why?
And I rebelled. I 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Also, I got the fear of God pulsing through my veins as a kid, because I was scared to death of my parents. So,
Yeah.
there was some of that, but also I was also very stubborn, as both of my parents are very stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were genius in that way of allowing me to be stubborn.
It builds character, man.
Yeah, it does, because now I understand why they made me clean my room, clean the dishes.
Yeah, man.
Dude, oh my gosh, if you come home to a clean house, stress, it's just like, it's refreshing. You're like, oh,
Dude.
because you
It's
feel
the
so,
same-
yeah.
Fuck, getting into it. It's the same thing. Like, why do I make my bed? How cool is it to fucking walk into a bedroom with a fucking made bed?
Yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting
Oh
in
yeah,
you.
baby. Oh yeah, I'm peeling you back and I'm jumping right in you. But yeah, dude, it's the same. So like, I have this, what do you call it? Recently acquired new group of friends,
Yeah.
and I'm the oldest one out of the bunch, besides Aaron. But I just keep noticing, they love the podcast. They listen to the podcast. They're our frequent listeners.
Yeah.
But last night I was hanging out at the shop, and Caleb was he was describing my apartment, and he's just like, dude, he's like, you roll up into Taylor's apartment, and he's like, studious as fuck. And I'm just like, I'm like, bro, what does your room look like? Because I'm like, I mean, I keep it nice in here, man. I got all the essentials.
Right.
As far as the neat and tidiness goes, it's mid. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, it's just funny. It's funny because it's like you are a different level of studious as fuck, because every time we get on this podcast, you have that fucking fan, you have your little row of hats and shit. Your shit is always nice and then you get to my fucking screen over here and you just see the world. Right? I'm always scrambling right before the cast to go make it look halfway presentable, dude.
Just throwing it all in the sink so it's out of the way. Behind the
Dude, there's-
counter.
Yeah. There's shit all behind the fucking counter, right around the fucking corner here. Like, but it's because I care though, It's like I care.
Right.
It's,
And for me, I like you said, I'm like a different level of studious, and I think to the average listener, we call this anal. Because I get really bad with my roommate, and I just have to always consistently tell myself I am not his parent. I cannot tell him what to do. But in like my mind, like shared spaces, like the living room, kitchen, and bathroom, those are unequivocally there's no discussion, there's no argument to be had. Those stay clean all the time. No one shit lays around out there. It's just as clean, period, all the time.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want in your room if you're living with somebody.
Yeah.
But for me, I'll tell you this. When I was 13, 14 years old, I had clothes piled up to my knees in my room. My bed was never made. Toys were all over the place. I was a slob. I didn't clean up anything. And it was a constant hassle every week. My parents are like, you need to clean your room. You need to clean your room. You need to clean your room. And I'm like, no. And it was a battle every time. And my mom finally was like, I'm going to help you, but we're going to do this, right? My mom shouldn't have helped me. She should have just said, get your ass in there and clean that room or else you're grounded. No. But I mean, really, that really taught me to this day. It's so much easier if you fold your clothes after you take them off every night. Your hats are exactly where you left them the last time. You could just go pick that hat up. It's just, and for me coming to a clean room, knowing exactly where something is, I just go boom right to it, pull it out, put it back.
Efficiency.
Right. I don't want to have to.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just don't want to have to waste my time once a week or twice a week cleaning up a mess that I made. Literally, if I would have just done it there, that's 10 seconds of my time to fold my shirt and put it in the drawer.
And it just says something about you. It's desirable.
Yeah.
You are a more desirable person because of the way that your room looks. Honestly.
Yeah.
Somebody, big corporation, small business, doesn't matter, anywhere, that is a highly desired trait.
Yeah.
Because one thing that happens, I think it's a very hard habit to get into, and I'm looking at this with work and in a shop situation. Tools, bro. There are 10 million tools for automotive. Dude, that's why they have stores dedicated to tools. That's why they have trucks driving around with tools on them for you to buy. Anyways, tools are can be one of the biggest wastes of time on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Because if somebody doesn't put that 10 millimeter wrench,
I knew you were going to say fucking 10 millimeter. I knew you were going to say that shit.
Or that socket or something, if they don't put that back in its home, okay, now let's look at it. Let's break it down. I now have to find that tool because I need it. I need that tool. I'm going to spend 5 minutes looking. That's one person. Now I'm going to ask somebody else, hey, can you help me find this 10 mil? I cannot find it. Okay, now you have two people looking. Okay, now you've both wasted 10 minutes, which is actually 20, because each person has spent 10 minutes. Now we look at an hourly wage. Okay, we break it down on an hourly. How much money did I just spend looking for a tool?
Right.
So when you start looking at it like that,
right,
you're just like, holy shit.
I know it.
Holy shit. Because then it relates right back to your room.
Yeah.
Your room is neat and tidy because it saves you time. You know where everything is. You can be efficient.
Right.
Highly desired traits.
Right. And see, for me, that's like on a managerial aspect, that is like unequivocally. It's funny because I don't know why my brain immediately went to like this place, but when you're like, oh, the 10 millimeter, now you're 10 minutes a person. That's 20 minutes, or that's 20 minutes of paid work time that could be spent on something else. Me, if I were a manager, and I'm just going to speak on the tool side of it, since that's what the analogy was, I'd be like, it is unequivocal. You put the tools back. That is a rule. You don't, you're getting freaking reprimanded by a freaking ruler or no, just, but it's just those it's just those things you put into place, dude. It's like, if you use something, just put it back. How freaking hard is that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For like me and music, I've got everything on my iPad and it's organized. It's all in there in my app I have. It's all categorized by composers and what their works are. And then in there's a subcategory for if it's an oratorio, an opera, a lieder, a piano concerto, an orchestration. It's all categories that way. So I know exactly. I'm like, okay, I want to see Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I go into the Beethoven folder. Then I go into the symphony folder. Then I go into his Symphony 5. Boom, there's Symphony 5. Pull it up. Boom. Instead of being like, okay, what? Okay, I need to find, where's this?
Yeah.
It's just boom, 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 boom. It's easy. It's quick. It's time not wasted. I know exactly where my my La Nozze di Figaro score is. It's at the bottom shelf on the left furthest hand side where all my opera scores are, right next to the other Barenreiter I have of La Finta Giardiniera by Mozart. It's right to the left of that. It's like I know exactly where it is. I know I go there every time. I put it back when I'm done. Boom.
Bro, it's simple. It's simple.
Yeah. I might be a little next level because then I go into it further and I color coordinate my closets. That might be to the extreme, but
honestly though, but it's like I like that a lot. If I was the CEO of a fucking company and I heard about this kid being you, I'd be like, why hasn't he already been hired?
Yeah.
So
the COO, the operations manager,
whatever the hell.
Chief Operating Officer. Anyways. That's why they don't hire me.
Jesus. Eric, I'm supposed to go golfing today.
Are you really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice change of topics. What time?
17 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. Eric, I'm trying to decide on what I'm supposed to tell Aaron here. When do you want to go to the golf course?
Do you want to go?
Not anymore. I really enjoyed going golfing last week, but here's the thing. We've talked about this on another episode of the cast. And I need to get better at this. I should probably go golfing. That's what I should probably do. I like group activities. And when I know that it's going to be Aaron and I. Nothing against Aaron. Absolutely nothing against Aaron.
Right.
But and Aaron's going to leave soon. Aaron only has like another week left and then he's gone forever. So it's like I feel obligated that I need to go golfing with this man.
Yeah.
As a friend.
Right.
He's been doing me a solid. He's been getting me onto the Air Force Base to go to the gym every night.
Right.
So I probably need to go.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, you do, Taylor.
Yes.
He wants to play 18.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm up for 18.
Yeah, I would just go and, just like you said, I would just text and be like, yeah, I'm down. We'll see how I'm feeling after 9. And if you don't want to do 18, then after the 9, just quit. And I'm sure you could probably ask the pro shop and just be like, is it okay if I pay for 9 and then if I choose to play 18, can I just pay for the second 9 or get reimbursed and then pay for 18?
Well, so here's another cool situation here. he wants to go play because Nellis has a golf course,
Mm.
and I feel like that'd be a really cool opportunity to play on a course that not a lot of people get to play on.
What is it called?
Nellis Air Force Base.
Oh, they've got a golf course there? Oh,
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
You go play that.
yeah.
That,
I think
yeah.
it'd be a cool opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it's would be cool to see stuff there. Not a lot. I'll tell you this. Not a lot of people get the opportunity to play on military base golf courses. And it's funny because Tiger Woods, he was saying his dad was in the military and he got to play on
Yeah.
all of those military bases. That's how he started his golf career, is playing at military bases.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Probably
go.
just-
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day out today too.
It is here too.
Dude, it's
It's like
sunny as fuck.
65 degrees outside right now.
That actually means that I need sunscreen. Is what that means.
Yeah, you go. You throw on some shorts, some short
Got 'em on.
shorts, and don't put sunscreen on your legs.
Nope. Nope.
I'm
I
sorry.
need to wear.
I gotta
no
roast you.
socks.
I gotta roast you here for a second.
Dude, you
that
don't have to.
that lifting video you sent us, I was looking at that. I'm like, oh my lord, his from his neck up are tan from welding, and his arms and his legs are wider than a piece of paper.
God damn it.
With the white socks on too, I'm like, ooh, not the move.
I'm surprised you noticed the socks were on. Fucking my legs are so.
No, I
white.
just saw the black check mark of the Nike swoosh.
The Nike.
That's how I knew you were wearing socks.
Did he get a Nike tattoo on his leg?
Yeah.
Oh no, he's wearing socks.
I'm the same way, dude. I was looking at my hand the other day, like my wrist hand, when I
Mhm.
was sitting on the train. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get sun. And then I had a moment of panic. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in New York City. How am I going to get sun? I can't just go sit out on the sidewalk.
Oh my god.
And like, am I just going to hang out my window with my arms out the window and my legs out the window over the summer?
Dude, see? That's what I'm saying.
Because I don't think
I'm
I'm
in
going to be
trouble.
golfing as much as I think I am over the summer. If I choose to stay in New York, I might go back and work at the golf course in Oregon.
Yeah.
But I just haven't decided what I'm going to do yet.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's all I got to say.
I think that is all I have as well.
Okay. Well, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that follow button on Spotify and
Yes, sir.
YouTube or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Those are
Gosh, yeah.
yeah, those are great. You can comment on
Late night tangents at both.
yeah. And yeah, feel free to ask a question. We got a little comment saying that not every episode has the Q&A factor on it. That just has to be enabled each time you upload it.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, you did it for one episode.
Oh shoot.
And then all the rest of them, I think you have to enable it each time when you upload it.
Copy that.
So hopefully we'll get that going. So you can
Yes,
ask us
sir.
questions or comments,
Good deal.
topics.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're just going to keep coming back each week and doing what we need to do unless one of us is out of town.
Yep.
All right.
And with that, that is the end of podcast episode 12,
13.
13.
13.
13. We'll be back. Shut your mouth. We'll be back next week for another amazing episode. Guess we'll catch you on the flip side.
Flippity flop.
All right. Peace out.
Bye.